This is a Hot Pie Media original.
This is one of those times that you sort of get to walk through your life. When somebody dies, you get to walk back through your life. There is no one that I can think of that crosses generations or crossed generations like this person. Whether you're 16 or 70 in your life, he's been on your radar. Unlike anyone else I can think of. Anyone in pop culture, however you want to frame it, I don't really care, but I can't think of another star that has found their way to stardom in as many different ways to as many different generations. So you could it'd be fascinating to do it. I'm sure people have already done it over the last few hours. You could sit down over a cup of coffee, iced tea, good wine, Dow 2017 Reserve, and you could sit down with a 16-year-old, bring it up, it'd mean one thing. A 45-year-old, bring it up, it'd mean one thing. A 65-year-old and above, bring it up, it'd be one thing. All of them would have different stories, but each one of them would have had this person in your life on your radar. John Madden, I don't have to give a definition because each one of you, no matter what your age, he was a part of your life in a different way, died yesterday at 85. And I'm not pretending, don't do this thing, come on, Jeff, don't pretend he's all that important. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not pretending he was important for anything more than entertainment. But in terms of an icon, in terms of a popular figure over the last 45 years, he's something for everybody in the most bizarre ways. And, I nerd out on stories like this just because I think it's fascinating and I don't sleep, so I just sit up and read all night. The more I read, the more interesting and iconic John Madden, the character, the coach, the pitchman, and how he became a pitchman is hilarious by itself. And then, arguably, the video game that launched all video games, the game that took us to the stratosphere in terms of gaming. He was part of that. How he got there in each case is just hilarious and bizarre. So this is one of those times when you really do sort of, there's famous actors, there's musicians, there's people that die that mean something during a period in your life. But I don't know there's many people that most people have grown up with like John Madden in some form. Because you could talk to a 20-year-old and assuming they've read nothing, followed nothing, then they would say, well, the game. I don't even know who that dude is. The game. It's pretty remarkable. So he was iconic for different reasons with different generations. One generation, of course, in the 70s and 80s, knew John Madden as a successful football coach. He was sort of my time frame, and even that part of his life is really iconic. So he's a coach. If you just take the John Madden time period as an NFL coach, remarkably successful coach. And people don't remember this because the Raiders have sucked so long, but they were one of the winningest sports franchises over a 15-year period in any sport. But not just that, it was an iconic type of coach at an iconic time for the growth of the NFL. And there hasn't been another team like it, really. He was a coach, 70s and 80s. I mean, he was a coach before that, but became famous, ended up in the Hall of Fame, suffered burnout pretty quickly. He was a coach whose brand of football was iconic. And I say that in that their brand of football was just the strategy of football was they were a downfield team. They were a team that threw the ball as far as they could at a time when the game really wasn't played that way. They really sort of opened up football as we know it now. They always made sure they had one super fast guy. And every now and then they're going to chunk it as far as they could. It was a really interesting, at the most inopportune times, they would throw the ball. The term in football would be their most vertical team probably to play the game. So he was iconic as a coach. Plus, he was a mess. He was a fat, hairy mess. Yeah, my dad used to tell me stories about him, and everyone liked him as a coach. My dad was an NFL referee for a long time. I would just laugh. When he would tell me stories about that team, the Raiders teams, which those dudes were crazy. He would tell me stories about that team, and he would just talk about Madden and laugh. And so he was not just the brand of football they played, which was really, really good, the way they played, and then the way he coached. The Raiders were the ultimate outlaw team. We don't really know outlaws. We don't reward outlaws anymore. We would hate on them now, but they were loved as the first outlaw team, out of control, lawless, tough. We have no rules kind of franchise. He bragged about how he just left them alone. He didn't care what they did, just win. So it was really he was the anti-Tom Landry, and the Raiders were the anti-Cowboys in every sense of the way. The football part of his story was really iconic, too. It was a kind of fascinating time in pro football. So there's that John Madden. Then, and what I don't think a lot of people know or realize or even consider is how he became, I guess, one of the most popular, I don't know how it's debatable, popular TV figures of your generation, assuming you're above the age of 35? Yeah, if you're above the age of 35, this is one of the most popular TV personalities of your generation. For those who watched and grew up watching football, this is, not even arguably, the most famous analyst in football. In fact, I would tell you the media industry has been scratching and clawing to find another one ever since John Madden. That's how important he was. That's what he meant to your TV viewing. Like him, hate him, it didn't matter. You watched. And you watched because he was this mess of a personality, knowledgeable enough, passionate enough, but quirky enough for it to work. I think the closest thing to him now is Tony Romo. Just quirky and weird enough to be entertaining. But John Madden, of course, becomes this TV personality, this analyst. And what I don't think people understand is how he ended up there. Go back to, 80s, mid-80s, early 80s, I guess. We'll sort of walk you through this because I think it's a pretty fascinating time in media history. He was hired as, remember the ad campaign for Miller Lite. Miller Lite and that ad campaign, anybody remember it? Tastes great, less filling. Tastes great, less filling. Masterful, brilliant. It launched light beer when light beer was not even known. Not even known. And they would use celebrities, oftentimes sports celebrities, selling light beer to dudes. And they did it in a masterful way. They hired John Madden. Remember one of the first commercials John Madden did for Miller Lite? And he did a whole bunch. And they were hugely successful. Remember the one where he broke through the sign like he's running onto the field and he's just throwing his arms around and yelling and being John Madden? That's how John Madden, the TV personality, was created. And I think they ended up using him because they bounced around to a bunch of different celebrities at the time. Never had the juice, I don't think. Never had OJ. Probably too expensive at that time. But it was taste great, less filling. And they would argue back and forth, and they would find these sort of iconic personalities. Brilliant ad campaign. And I would submit to you, I mean, we can all debate about pop culture, but I would submit to you it's what launched John Madden, the personality. And then the story of having the guts to bring that kind of personality into the broadcast booth in a very tame, buttoned up industry, the NFL.
Boy, could I go for a nice cold light beer from Miller. So I thought I'd just pop in at my favorite hangout and have one with the guys. Well, the whole gang drinks light. Oh, sure, there's a lot of other light beers around, but we all agree that light beer from Miller tastes terrific. And get this, it's less filling.
John, how many times have I told you, use the door, huh?
I forgot, I'm sorry.
Light beer from Miller. Everything you always wanted in a beer, and less.
Like I was saying, light beer tastes great. And another thing.
He just keeps, they just kept it going. Tell me when you watch that. Tell me who he looks like and sounds like. Come on. This is sad to bring up. It's morbid to bring up. But don't tell me. Just pay attention for 10 seconds. And if you're above the age of 35, you know who he looks like and sounds like.
Boy, could I go for a nice cold light beer from Miller. So I thought I'd just pop in at my favorite hangout and have one with the guys.
John Candy. He's John Candy. Oh my gosh, it's John Candy. That's kind of sad, but it's John Candy. All right, so they keep him, they keep using him, and he's great. He's great at it. Here's a guy who burned out of football. It just admitted to it. Was burned out, hated it. You know one of the things that burned him out? He wouldn't fly. That's a story by itself. He was in a plane crash with, I want to say he was an assistant coach. Somebody listening somewhere will correct me on this because I'm doing this off the top of my head. But he was in a plane crash that killed several people. And I believe he was an assistant coach at some small school in California, I want to say. It was San Luis Obispo, right? Obispo. And he just wouldn't fly again. And that really burned him out. You know, he became famous for having a bus, but he would freak out, and the whole thing he admitted it just coaching was eating him alive. And here's a guy that's not healthy anyway. He lived to 85. He died at 85, which is pretty remarkable. So then they hire him, and he's got nothing going on, and it launches stardom. I mean, if you are above the age of 35 and you watch an NFL game anytime between, 1984 and 1998, you watched John Madden and you laughed.
By Reggie Doss. First sack, and McMahon scrambles to his feet angrily.
He wants to get in a fight. You can't do that. The quarterback, you can't fight. He got sacked. He was trying to throw a quick pass, a quick hitch out here, and Galt was covered. And then after he couldn't, had he thrown it, he would have been intercepted. He just had to hold it and take the sack.
True, you don't hear about many quarterbacks being in fights.
No, usually they're off, telling everyone, calm down, calm down. See, I think it's that extra hit there at the knee when Doug Reed came over the top. Then McMahon said, when you're a quarterback, the way you fight a guy is you throw the ball at him.
And then you back up.
Yeah, he sings it in at Reed.
McMahon gives to Peyton. Peyton trying to get around the corner, does a little bit. Taken out of bounds by Collins. No flag.
Well, the fans are booing on that, Pat, but that's a tough one for Johnny Johnson. He's coming up. Now, when you get on that sideline, you have to unload on Peyton because you know he's going to unload on you. And that's what Johnson's saying. I just can't stand there and let him unload on me. Now, watch Walter as he comes up there just before he goes out of bounds. Watch him now. He switches the ball. Now he's going to unload with that right arm.
First of all, I can name every player on the field. John McClellan is the co-founder and creator of ATX Hot Sauce, now in all 50 states and several retail outlets as well. So what we're going to do today is we're going to let this social media rock star chef walk us through 4 different sauces, and then I'll taste, and we'll tell everyone why they should buy. You can give the science behind these, and then I'll make the simple recommendation. Go to atxhotsauce.com. All right,
I don't think anybody's heard the website.
Yeah, I know.
By you, Jeff, but it is atxhotsauce.com.
I'll say
I got that one right.
45 times, atxhotsauce.com. So let's do it.
I brought 4 flavors here, and we're going to test your palate today. Okay. And I only brought 4 because I didn't think you could handle 5 or 6.
Yes,
probably a smart move. Yeah. And so the first one we're going to try here is called Beat Heat. And just like the name implies, it has beets in it. It's made with red Fresno peppers. Red Fresnos are red peppers that are they're hotter than a jalapeno and a little bit less than a serrano. So not super hot here, just a lot of good, really good flavor. So we're going to start with this one, and then we're going to move up the chain.
Okay. I've had the beet heat, but okay.
Yeah, we're going to try it though.
It goes well with a cab. All right, Jeff's savoring beet
I'll
heat.
even do it with you, so that should be all right. Now remember, it is hot sauce.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It's hot sauce. Trust me, man.
Wait,
It's hot sauce.
is that one hot to you?
No. A little.
Yeah. The great thing with the fermentation process is you get a bunch of the flavor right up front.
Yeah.
And then the heat comes, but then it dissipates pretty quickly, especially with the red Fresnos. You know, this is not a very spicy one, but it is a very tasty one. Goes on great on sandwiches.
Beet heat.
Beet heat. B-E-E-T. Heat.
All right. Go to atxhotsauce.com.
That's right.
First of all, Johnny Johnson, who tackled Walter Payton. How about those? How about dropping those names? Played at Texas. One of the best players ever to play at Texas. Defensive back. Madden. There was that there. There's that there. And of course, you had no idea what he's talking about. There's this thing over there. That. I mean, what power naps those were, right, everyone? Sunday afternoon, hungover. Pat Summerall. I mean, what a voice. And then Madden, and that is an afternoon of drooling on yourself kind of power nap, wasn't it? Man, those were good times in college. Get that game on and watch a quarter and a half and then wake up for like the last 5 minutes. He was... Football nerds couldn't stand it because he goofed around or was just the way he was. It worked.
Here's Joe Morris in motion. Sims straight back. Got a man. Bobby Johnson. It's knocked down at the last second. Somebody threw a shoe. There's a pigeon on the field. How did he get in there?
Well, he wanted to get down there. He couldn't get a seat. He tried to get up above, and there was no place. The only place there was only that he could land was right there.
He was in the middle of the action. I thought the shoe came off.
I'll tell you, there's the throw. Johnson really has him beat. And there's the pigeon was right there where Johnson was running. I think there were two pigeons there. Johnson's trying to run a post pattern, and the pigeon's getting away.
And it's still there.
That's, the old thing, you can run down to the pigeon and turn left.
How cool is that? Run to the pigeon and turn left? It's good stuff. Plastic world, we don't need plastic people, man. Run to the pigeon and turn left. See, that's awesome. That's the kind of quirky, raw stuff we never have in a suck-up world. The pigeon was got in the way of the ball. And he would ramble. He would go on aimlessly. He was like, he spoke in sentence fragments before Trump. Right? He would stop. It would just bounce halfway through one sentence to the next sentence to the next sentence. That's the way it worked. Then he quit. What year was it that he retired? The Monday Night Football had these periods. Monday Night Football is iconic. It was originally iconic because of back in the 70s, in a period of real risk-taking in TV. It was iconic because of the broadcast team. Then Madden comes along. It's still iconic. Then you have years and years of trying to make it that again, trying to find another John Madden, trying to be entertaining. Not knowledge. A lot of people can know football. Not many people can communicate and be quirky and entertaining. And so the TV business has been trying to find somebody ever since. And just, until Tony Romo and his quirkiness came along, we haven't really had that person. And I don't think we'll have it again because they just don't take risks.
This is the toughest time, Al, because
Hall of Famer John. The night he quit was, what year was that? 89 or 99 or 2000? Oh, 2009. I'm only off by a little bit. All right, he's dead at the age of 85. All right, so there's that. So I could sit there and nerd out on John Madden clips. Remember when you would take out the telestrator and it would just, the whole screen would be covered up? Like it was a crayon, like we had crayons out or something? All right, so you have the coach, right? Follow this through people's lives. You Oh, this is the Vince Scully and John Madden? Oh, what that?
With John Madden. Hi, everybody. I'm Vin Scully, along with John Madden.
Pat Summerall here with John Madden.
For 30 years, John Madden was the beloved dean of football analysts.
What a way to start a Super Bowl. That's what Cincinnati wants to do.
As the first sportscaster to work for all 4 major networks, Madden built a successful career with his colorful everyman approach.
Boom, you hit him. I mean, that's boom. Boom, right to the ground. Some people say, they run in there and they collide or something. I mean, hits in there, boom. That's what I say. He makes a little basketball twist there and pivot, and boom, the ball's there right again between the 8 and the 9. Oh, is he happy?
While later generations remember his larger-than-life broadcast persona, it was as the coach of the Oakland Raiders that he first grabbed the spotlight. In 1969, the 32-year-old Madden became the NFL's youngest head coach.
Let's start off and stay after him the whole game.
In 10 seasons with the Raiders, Madden built a dominating team. He boasts one of the best regular season winning percentages of any coach with 100 victories. He won 3 of every 4 games.
Well, John Madden was the Raiders. I mean, his personality, his intensity, his persona, everything about John, his appearance, was ideally suited for the Raiders. These guys responded to him when possibly they couldn't have responded to anyone else, no matter how smart or gifted they'd be.
Sorry, I could do it for like the next 6 hours.
Players coach.
So, the iconic coach, coaching an iconic way with iconic players that you just couldn't tolerate today. I mean, these guys were on edge. They were out of control. They were liquored up in some cases. They're fighting every other down. It was just fascinating. Then you have John Madden, the pitchman, who went from pitchman to TV analyst to megastar in no time. And then sit down with anybody between the ages of 14 and 55 or older. And guess what they know? The video game. That by itself is worthy of a documentary. So I understood most of the story. We could debate, and I'm fine with debating, although, I've played, my kids always would tell me, you're the only dad who doesn't game. That is true. Although I've played Madden a few times. I mean, it's still played. It's still played by an entire generation. It is brilliant and masterful. 300 million copies of Madden have been sold. Most kids, I even remember saying it to 2 of mine one time. Do you know who the game is named after? No. Who? Football coach? Who's that? An entire generation knows the name. So how this thing transpired with this guy is a remarkable story by itself. And we can sit here and do Madden trivia for anybody, just men. I don't know about that. There's plenty of moms that have probably lectured their husbands and sons saying, please stop, please stop. Who was on the cover of the very first EA Sports Madden? Who was on the cover? What year? Who was the first player on the cover of Madden? How about this one? This is a bizarre piece of trivia. So this is a game that has sold 300 million copies. My son's lecturing me on how EA Sports has screwed everything up and, in terms of being an entertainment company. But who was approached to create the game before John Madden? I don't know how many people even know that story. So it's 250 million copies. Follow this story. This by itself is like the stuff of an American legend. In the early 1980s, EA Sports founder Trip Hawkins approached San Francisco 49ers legend Joe Montana about becoming the face of their video game. Uh-oh. You want to know mailbox money? Being the face of the EA Sports video game, it would have been Montana. Joe already had an agreement with Atari. Dink, dink, dink. That Atari, dink, think so. I read the story is that the head of EA Sports was on a plane. No, not on a plane, on a train, because Madden wouldn't fly. And he approaches Madden because they're trying to code and create this game. So Madden draws up plays. They end up doing the deal with John Madden, who at the time, of course, the EA Sports people knew him as a famous coach. At the time, they knew him as a pitch man. This is in the early 80s. Okay? Montana turns it down because he already has a deal. So they then go to John Madden. Okay? The first edition, it took 3 different editions. He got mad apparently early on. They signed him to a $150 million deal in 2005, which is crazy money then. It would be, it's $1.5 billion in sales annually. Okay? $1.5 billion in sales annually. John Madden's agreement to be the face and the creator, to a degree, of EA Sports Madden football is the most discounted deal you could ever imagine. They're selling it at $1.5 billion annually and paid him $150 million. That's a sweet deal. So they sign him up. He agrees, and he doesn't like the game at first because it's 7-on-7 with these little. It almost looked like the early creation of Madden looked like Space Invaders. They were sort of players, but there were just 7 of them. And Madden said that doesn't work. It's not realistic because they told Madden they wanted the game because originally they wanted him to script plays. And so he scripts plays, but then he doesn't like the game because it's 7-on-7. He said, that's not the way the game works. I don't want to be a part of that. We got to keep working. So it goes from, I think, the early 80s until the first release in 88. Because it took that long to get the game the way he wanted it. And he was apparently meticulous in how the game looked, which, of course, a lot of us have grown up knowing the game and knowing how, you go the early day watching it. You go the early days and it's laughable. The ball's like bigger than all the players. Until you look like Space Invaders.
Touchdown.
All right, so then they do this deal with John Madden. He only appeared on the cover of the game. No. So John Madden appeared on the cover of the video game until 1994. He was the only person on the covers, the fans cheering. There's the one in 95. I think that's when I first played it. Think of the time that we've wasted in our lives. Think of this.
Touchdown.
Remember when you could first start dancing in the end zone? That was cool. That was like a huge moment in your life, right?
Touchdown.
Remember when you first got to start picking the players? You could pick that legendary team. Oh my gosh. That was the hours right there wasted out of your life. No, pick him. He was on the cover all the way until, and I find this hard to believe. He was on the cover through 94. He was on every one of them. His face, blah, blah, blah. EA Sports decided to make a Dallas Cowboy player and a San Francisco 49ers player were the first players on the cover. And you would think, oh gosh, must have been Emmitt Smith or something. No, Eric Williams from the Dallas Cowboys and Carl Wilson from the San Francisco 49ers were the very first players to be on the cover. We'll do that trivia tonight, see if that doesn't get you a drink. They kept featuring Madden. They would stick him up, remember, in the corner every now and then. John Madden would pop up every now and then. on the cover until the end of the year 2000. Only players have appeared on the cover since. And, of course, the rest is history. $1.5 billion in sales. So Joe Montana was first approached. Couldn't do it because he had that great deal with Atari. And think about that, going to bed every night. I know Joe Montana has had a huge career, and he's pitching Guinness beer now and all that stuff. But imagine closing your eyes at night thinking, $1.5 billion in sales a year, and there's no end in sight? For what, Atari? So then Joe Montana was first pitched. Madden is hired, I think, by pure accident. He delays the game for 4 or 5 years. They sign him to a $150 million deal on a product that does $1.5 billion in sales.
From the Hot Pie Media Studios in Austin, Texas, it's the Jeff Ward Show. Listen at jeffwardshow.com.